What are we talking about today? What did you brought me on for?
Right. So, what happened was that I was listening to, you know, Dan Savage is?
I don't.
So Dan Savage has had a love column in one of right now it escapes me, but like one of the top newspapers. And then that escalated to him becoming like the love doctor in a sense. And now he has, he's had for a while this podcast called the Savage Lovecast. And you can people call in and ask him all types of questions, like personal things, like I cheated on my husband 4 times and I got herpes, but I still love him. Should I tell him I have herpes? Like all types. It's wild, right? So I'm listening to this one episode, and Dan is giving advice to a woman who was having an affair. And it sounds like the woman is toying with the idea of raising polyamory to her partner. But of course, the affair has already happened. Mm-hmm. So Dan says, as an aside, that, you know, we can get into how gay men are better at polyamory than almost everyone else. But, you know, we'll put a pin in that and we'll come back to it. So I heard that and I was like, And of course, he never goes back to it. He kind of just leaves it hanging there. And I brought it up to Soko. And then Soko got real fired up over it. She was like, no, she poking holes in her. And I'm like, well, I think we should talk about it then. Right? So that is what we're talking about today. We're talking about gay men. The question is, are gay men better at polyamory than everyone else in the queer community, hetero community? Are they better able or more emotionally mature to handle polyamory than most?
Okay, so I will say, look, Soko eyes big as shit. I will say that Soko hit me up because we were talking this morning, and hit it was with the question specifically, are they more emotionally mature? Mm-hmm. Absolutely fucking not. Like let's just say no. Listen, now are they better at polyamory? I believe that could be true. I do not believe it is because they are emotionally more mature. So I want to pause there, right?
Okay.
I think it's not fair to ask me because I ain't a gay man. I ain't never been in a polyamorous relationship with a gay man. However, I do like to think that they don't see the connection and the love as a part of necessarily the sex or being with someone else. Mm-hmm. I don't think that, again, I don't believe that makes them more mature. It does make them have different thinking, though. And I would argue that may be right. Without being a gay man, I do they'll come rub on your ass and not have any, they don't care. They're just like, oh, it's a part of the game. Mm-hmm. So I think that they have that, whereas we connected to, you start talking to someone too long and we think it's a betrayal, right? Yeah. So it's we do see intimacy and connection, I think, differently. And I think it's something that matters when we're talking about polyamory in our community.
Okay. I agree. And I like that you mentioned that, that you're not a gay man. So I wanted to get that perspective. And I had a friend of mine who, of course, does not represent the entire gay male community, but his name is Nathan. And I posed this question to him. And the reason why I posed this question, so I'll start with the reason why I chose him specifically, is because one time we had went out and he was telling me that him and his partner, it sounded like he was alluding to the fact that him and his partner were kind of open. Like they go on dates with other people sometimes. And I was kind of pleasantly surprised by that, because you just don't hear people, one, talk about it ever, even if they're doing it all the time. So I was like, cool. I just let it slide because I'm not going to be like, oh my God, and tell me how you got there. Especially with my, at the time, my girlfriend and I were kind of going through something related to this. So it wasn't the time. But so I asked Nathan to, what he thought about this. And he said, John is his partner. John and I are definitely not poly. No dating or regular hookups outside of our relationship, but are playfully open about attraction to other guys. I think in some cases, gay men are able to suspend jealousy and insecurity in their relationships because of an understanding of physical desires. It's easy for two guys to have an agreement of sex with someone else, disconnected from the partnership they go home to, more so than a mixed-gendered couple. aside, would two women be able to have the same dynamic? I don't know. I'm going to say probably not, because society hates women and tamps down their independence and breeding more of a need to have a partner. So I think there is a propensity for gay men to be able to handle a polyamorous relationship. But I would hesitate to say that on the whole, two men are better at it than other permutations of relationships.
Okay, let me chime in a little bit. So
ahead.
I like what he said, and what he said is very good. It's solid, okay? I love his points. I want to point out a few. So one, we're starting with this topic that, are gay men better at? Where did this guy, Dan Savage, get this information from? Who said this? So where are the stats? Where are the polls?
Dan is in a polyamorous relationship himself. Again, not to say that he is the champion of all that, but he's just been doing the sex and love relationship thing for a long time. I mean, not to say that he has a white paper on it, but I would call him an expert on that shit.
All right, I believe you.
And you can only be an expert with who you are an expert with. So I would then also be like, who's your readership? You know what I mean? Like who's calling in to ask you these questions on a regular basis? Yeah. Unless you are really across all dynamics, then you still only have a certain expertise in a certain field, right? Expertise is niche work. So yeah, I don't know who Dan is, and
where does this come from?
He ain't on our stuff.
So, yeah. Your friend Nathan, he points to something out, and I'm just going to put this in layman terms. So males are know what they like physically a little bit more, and they have physical desires, right? So the only way I can see this might be possibly true, if we were to say it was true, is that because men want their cake and eat it too. So they're okay with dealing with the jealousy and things like that because they are okay with it because they want to fuck around a little bit or have other relationships. So they deal with the shit that comes with it compared to, let me say, a female to female, they bring up the issues that they have. They bring up those jealousies like, hey, excuse me, ma'am, I'm not liking that. And I think that is a major difference.
Well, I just want to say I like cake. I like cake.
I love cake too. I love cake, okay?
But I like to eat my cake. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't like just make the cake. I want to eat the cake. But I will say that I think that women are possessive, right? And to just bring us back to people fighting in the street, right? Like what we don't talk about, and I think what we don't talk about specifically with women of color, Black women, like we are trained to be protective, almost overly protective. And part of that is the ownership of your man, your boo, your friends, your thing, your yours. And so I think, what's his name, Nathan?
Yep.
I think he is correct, right? They are better at separating to the two. And as a person who has done the poly thing with a wife of 20 years, that's the one thing that we struggle with all the time, right? Like, I want my cake. I don't want nobody eating my cake. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I want to eat my cake. I want to eat my cake too. But like, you can't have my cake and you can't go share my cake with nobody else. Like, so,
right.
You know what I mean? And I think that's the thing that we pick up from heteronormativity, right? Like we've brought that with us. And we should relinquish that or at least find healthier ways. Like, or maybe that kind of possession should come with consent as well. Like, I think, but that is our burden to hold and to fix, I think, and would make us better at having poly relationships.
Absolutely. I do have problems with monogamy. I think that it's very flawed. I don't think that really anyone is capable of it. I think we force ourselves into it to align with norms, to not be shamed and judged by people, by the masses. I don't think it makes any sense that there are all of these people in the world, but you're only with one forever until you die. It doesn't make any sense. I follow and started reading some of her books, an author and also a sex therapist named Esther Perel. And Esther Perel has a lot of books that kind of relate to this thing of ownership, and that you have this one person, and that one person is responsible for all of their happiness in your life. So your wife is supposed to be your best friend. She is supposed to be your therapist. She's supposed to fuck you good. She's supposed to make you really great food. She's also supposed to be there when your career is tumbling and talk to you about it and help you get another job. She's there when your house falls apart. So she's also your handyman, whereas you can have different relationships and people that you rely on for different things. And it doesn't all have to be sexual relationships, but they can all be romantic in a sense, or they can be loving in a sense, right?
Intimate.
There you go. That's the word I was losing. But for me, that is what I think is the problem. But I do think that gay men are able, as you said, to separate that, to say, this partner that I love, my husband can provide me with all those things, but he doesn't always have to provide all of my sexual desires, So it's okay if we decide that we can step out to receive that for temporary pleasure, and then I'm going to come back home.
Well, and I think what's so key to that, though, is that we do look for intimacy. And again, I can only talk about my experience and my wife and my partners, right? Like, the issue that me and my wife have with opening our relationship, which we did once and have not done again, is that we are intimate creatures. By the time I'm having sex with you, I'm head over heels with you. Like, I'm already with you, right? Like, we are in love in some way, right? Like, what I mean? And that kind of connection, we don't separate sex in that way. Right. And I'm sure there are people who do it differently. We have not figured out how to be like, oh, I'm just going to go do this thing with this woman and then not care if she eats later. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we are tied to we're nesters where we build and create things. So it's like, no, by the time we're orgasming together, I care about you in some way, shape, or form, where I feel like with gay men in particular, they can go fuck you in a bathroom and go back to drinks like it is like, you know what I mean? Like it's nothing. And that's an assumption. I could be wrong. They can make me out for that. But I think we see it differently in that way. And I think that way is key. And I think that does not mean we should not be in poly relationships. But we should really understand and talk about that. No, I'm opening up to you in a way that's usually more than just physical. And our communities are small. So I'm going to see you all the time, even if we not like, you know what I mean? Even if we just happen to have one night, like I'm going to have to see you. You know what I mean? Like that becomes a thing, I think, at times too.
Yeah, for sure. You know what? I want to roll this back a little bit because let's talk about an open relationship versus polyamory, right? Because those are two different things. And I think maybe in the context of what Dan Savage was saying, that men are better at doing polyamory, maybe they're just better at doing open relationships. Because when I think about polyamory, I think about something a little bit deeper, right? It's not just about sex. It's actually about building connections with different people, not just physically, but emotionally, intimately, romantically, whatever you define that relationship as. So are gay men better at just open relationships and, having sex and being able to come back home? Well, are they really practicing polyamory? And the way I defined it, because everyone defines it in some different way.
So I'm thinking the broadest sense is ethical non-monogamy, right? It's right. An understanding between your partners, right? I really think it lives at kind of like the crux of what Brooklyn was saying. Like what is it about women? Is it just our nature? Is it hormonal? Why is it that we have this need to nest with people that we may not have even known for very long? And you're right. Like if I take someone home, I do care if you make it home the next day. You know what I mean? And I would like to hear from you. We don't have to fuck again, but I would like to hear from you just to make sure you got home safe, but that's not necessary. That the transactional thing of having sex with someone and then moving on doesn't require you to check in with me. So like, what is it about us that we can't separate, that we can't make sex transactional?
I don't know that I would say that we can't.
Okay. Right.
I want to roll it back to, I do like that we're going to keep ethical non-monogamy as our structure, right? Because I could go on polyamory and I think that is That's my goal. That's what I look at. Yes, I don't think that we can be transactional. I think the polyamory thing is still very new for us as a culture. And so we haven't quite figured out how to play it, right? I think we do like to believe that we could just do it like everybody else, go have some sex with some folks and like have this attraction and it was gonna be cool and like, yes, and then fuck, now we're in love, right? Like, hey, I was not prepared to like have Thanksgiving dinner with both of you bitch. Like,
yeah.
And so I like to think it's not that we can't, right? I think we have to set, like any other couples, one, we got to be completely honest. I think we have to talk about where those desires come from. For me, it really was about being intimate with other people. I really don't necessarily care if we have a lot of sex, but if we're like hanging out on the couch and watching movies, like that's really lit to me. For my wife, it is more like, look, boo, I'm looking for sexual freedom. Like I may take 3, like, you know what I'm saying? Like it was way more physical for her. And I think getting clear on that and being able to talk about that is where it makes it hard for us, because again, we are so tied to the possession of it. Mm-hmm. It's actually very hard for us to come to the table as clear and open, where you can actually look your partner in the face and say, I really want to fall in love with this person, or I really want to like take this person to a trip and like fuck their brains out for 3 days and then come home, right? Like we haven't evolved to really being that honest, because like you said, we've been trained to use monogamy as a survival technique, right? Like, you know what I mean? You got with a man and had some babies because he could then take care of you and those babies. So our connection to relationships have been historically very different. We're some of the freest people on the planet. We're the free generation that really gets to do this. Like your grandmother couldn't do that. You know what I'm saying?
Right, yeah, right.
And so, but we got to start with being honest with our own sense of desire and pleasure, and then be able to articulate that to someone who may or may not agree with you. And then we also have to give our partner space to come and do that. Now tell Dan Savage, move over, Brooklyn.
Brooklyn about to get on his podcast and tell him what was what.
Yeah. I completely agree with what you were saying. It's about being, you can know what you want, but it's being able to articulate what exactly is that you want. And then also, if something is bothering you about a situation, articulating what exactly is bothering you, right? It's not that I'm jealous. What exactly is making me feel jealous? Let's pinpoint that. And then it's all of that, navigating everything. But then should we, if we're, practicing ethical non-monogamy, should it be that honest that we're sitting from saying, hey, yeah, I want to fuck this person's brains out tonight?
No.
I don't know.
Some people.
Maybe not. Maybe yes.
Well, that's the question I wanted to ask you guys. Like, how do you open your mind or anyone else's mind to the idea that you can love more than one person at a time? It just starts right there. Because some people are like, you can only love one person. You can only give that much of yourself to one person. So how do you get someone open to that?
I think one, you have to be open to that. And if that's really what you believe, you got to stand in your own existence and be like, no, this is what I believe and this is what I do. Now, if you want to partner with me, you need to understand that, right? Because that's not going to change just because we have a connection. That's not going to shift no matter how many, girl, we can go to Disneyland and I can get you the big toy. You know what I'm saying? Like we could spend hella days together.
Yeah.
We could camp out for 7 months. But at some point, I'm going to still be true to me no matter what, because this is what I believe, which means I'm open to that. Yeah. And you have the option, like, I want you to roll with me, but you also have the option to jump off this train whenever you want to. And but know that, like, you know what I mean? We have to be real with us. And I don't think you can convince anyone. But I think what happens is we play it small. You know what you want, you know what you believe, and then you sacrifice, right? You don't go on that date because you think she's gonna get upset. You don't talk and get that number because you think this one's gonna leave. Like, and every time we sacrifice, it makes it okay. It says that now this is the precedence that this is gonna happen. This will be the way it is. And then you get stuck, right? Yeah. You're like, now you're cheating behind her back, right? Now you're doing shit that's unethical because you forgot to be true to yourself.
Mm-hmm. But what happens at that, you know, for example, you're into this relationship and it started off monogamous, and then you're now realizing certain things about yourself because you get older, you realize, hey, you know what? Monogamy might not be for me, right? And now you're fully in love with this person that you're with, that you know that you want to maybe practice polyamory. They don't understand it. What then? You want to be true to yourself, but you're also madly in this love with this person that can't see your point of view.
I mean, I think your partner, you have to position it to your partner, lay it all out. What you're, you know, if you're going to be true to yourself, as Brooklyn had said, you got to lay it out. And you also have to let your partner be true to themselves too. Like, because if you come to the decision that you can't continue in this relationship as it currently stands, then the relationship is over. You have come to an impasse. You know, that I think that's what it comes down to. I want to, you know, Soko, are you comfortable talking about your relationship? And
sure.
Yeah. Okay. So you are polyamorous. You identify at least as polyamorous.
Yes.
Currently, you're in a monogamous relationship.
Right now, we are monogamous. Yes.
Yes. So, like, what does that mean for you? Because as far as I remember you telling me, your partner is monogamous.
Yeah, you know, and we talk about this often. This is not something that we take off the table and forget about, right? My thing is, you know, it's a fairly new relationship. Although I came into this relationship saying I'm polyamorous, let me build my foundation first with this person and make sure it's a strong foundation before we start inviting other people into it. Yeah. And that's my goal, to get to a point where we're completely comfortable. We've talked about everything. And now, okay, let's start opening this up, whichever way we define it at that point in time. Mm. But I think we're both the end goal is, you know, not the end goal, but I am polyamorous. If she wants to, you know, remain like, hey, you know what, you do you, and I'm fine with this, fine. But I would like her to participate as well. Yeah. But you know, in my relationship currently, we're not there yet. Mm-hmm. In my previous relationship, we got there. Yeah. We got there, and it was the first time that, you know, we really played around with polyamory, and it took us a little bit to get there. It was a lot of discussion, but we did it for a little bit. And you know what? It was fun. I think the only reason we rolled back is because we realized that it's hard to communicate with people that you haven't been with in a long time. You've been with this person 5 years. You can say 5 words and they know exactly what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. If they're mad, you guys know that you need to sit down and communicate. And what we were running into is like not being able to communicate with the new people because, you know, there'd be a tiff or someone would get mad and they would just ignore the person or something like that instead of sitting. And it was like, well, is this worth it? So we ended up rolling back because of that, but then we ended up breaking up anyway. So I don't know.
Okay. So on the topic of, are gay men better at polyamory? Where do each of you stand?
No. First of all, nobody can be better than us at anything. I'm just saying. I just don't see that. Do they see it differently? Absolutely. And are they better off for it? At this point, maybe. But as we know, we're coming for them. It's all right.
And Soko?
No. I don't. Are gay men better at practicing ethical non-monogamy?
When you put it that way, though, the ethical non-monogamy part, yes.
Yes, right.
No, the ethical non-monogamy,
yes.
We'll let them have that.
Polyamory? I don't think so. They're two different things.
They're two different things. Well, because and so with ethical non-monogamy, yes. They can ethically go fuck someone for a night and come back to their partner. Could they then be 3 men in a relationship, happy and healthy? They not better than that for us.
They not better.
No,
right.
They've not proven that. But ethical non-monogamy, where a couple is together and they're out fucking other people and they are okay with that, and then they come back and be happy, maybe, yes. I don't know enough of them, but I would say they probably got that.
Exactly. And I completely agree. And that's where I stand. So when we talk about that, so do you, JL, you first, would you want to practice ethical non-monogamy or polyamory?
I would say if I had to choose between either one, it would probably be polyamory, because it's harder for me. Like, I can't just meet someone one night and want to have sex. It won't be the best sex. You know, like, I need to have some type of connection, and it has to develop over some time. So in that case, I'm going to need to have a connection. Yeah, polyamory, it would have to be.
Yeah. And how about you, Brooklyn?
I like to think like ethical non-monogamy is a part of my polyamory. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, you can't actually have a good polyamorous anything without it being ethical, period.
Yeah.
I am because I am the same way. My relationships are extremely intimate, and I like to have them for life. Right? Like, I am polyamorous, and I just hope and pray that we get to a space that we can be ethical and non-monogamous about that.
So many terms, like, it's like what?
Right? So long. Why can't you just say yes, Brooklyn? What the fuck? Yeah, I'm poly. I prefer poly, and would be happy with if I could, I would choose ethical non-monogamy. But I'm a polyamorous person.
Okay. So you'd rather not form the connections?
It's not that I would rather not. I understand that it would be logically easier.
Okay.
I love forming the connections. That's what I'm here for. That automatically makes that shit fucking messy. Right? Like, it's so much. Like, it's just so much. But like, it's cool if you can. What I will say, I think, Soko, you hit it right, because it's hard to do that with partners. It's harder to do that, I think, with partners outside of your primary. Right? Like, because I've been with her 20 years. Like, she raised her eyebrow. I know what that means.
Exactly.
Someone else has to then come into our bond. And no matter how bonded I am with them, they feel a thing, right? Like, and they weren't first. So it's like, when you talk about possession and things like that, there's just so many other feelings at play that it's like, no matter what I could, like, or at least, and again, I don't have a lot of experience, but what I ran into is that I couldn't make her secure enough, right? Like, I couldn't, and we then didn't have the primary amount of time. She didn't have a relationship with my wife in the appropriate way. So that left it being kind of unconnected in some ways. So again, I think we're learning how to do it. And I hope to be excellent at it one day. But I think that's a real practice, and that's time, and that takes some people who are willing to take that journey with you. So it's easier, and I love it. Like, I feel like when we get there, it's going to be lit.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing. And you're right. There's no book, no blue book to say like, hey, blueprint, this is what you do. Do this and do that and do this. We're all learning as we go. So that it can be messy and messy as fuck. But I think when you get that the reward is going to be so amazing. If you can finally get to that place where there's just a great understanding, I think there's a really great reward. That's how I think about poly. But it takes a lot of work, though. It's not for the weak. Not for the weak. Because the shit ain't easy at all. But I think it's fun.
It's fun. I think it's fun. I think it's extremely beautiful. Like, we're talking about practicing love with multiple people. How could that actually be wrong? You know what I mean? Like, having more than one person on the planet care about your existence and how that goes. Like, how could that be wrong? There's nothing that's lit. You know what I mean? Like, but we have to take that as a privilege and an honor to do and not kind of play it as this thing of like, you know what I mean? Like, we put a lot of ego, I think, on it too, and that's not fair.
You're right. That is crucial.
That is. And how about this? But last one is polyamory a trend? I feel like a lot of people, I don't want to, this is a whole nother topic because a lot of people, all right, there's a difference between, hey, I really want to build these intimate connections with multiple people because I don't feel like I should be this way with one person for the rest of my life compared to, you know what, I just want to fuck.
Yeah.
You know? Like, is it a trend? I feel like some people confuse the two. Like, oh yeah, I'm polyamory, but are you really?
I kind of feel similarly to non-binary. It is that people may not have had the word for it before. They may not have felt that they had the perfect way to describe it or the accepted way to describe it. And, you know, I'd never heard as many people saying they were polyamorous until the last, 2-3 years, maybe a little more. But I think, again, that people just lack the vocabulary. They might have been always wondering, you know, why is it that I can't be monogamous? What is my issue with monogamy? And they might have felt like this is the answer.
Yeah. No, I agree. And that's about right. You know, I didn't even know about polyamory until I watch a show on Showtime. I think it's called Polyamory. And then they were just like, you know, this one guy and two girls or these two girls. And, you know, they were just doing this. And I'm like, oh, it's a thing. It was a very long time ago. But yeah, very interesting. Okay. I don't know.
Brooklyn, thank you so much for joining us.
Of course. You guys are fun. I'm honored as always.
For real. We knew that you would be a great person to discuss this with.
Oh, yeah. Like, bring me on every other week. I feel like I need a tribe to just talk about crazy shit with.
Yeah. I feel like jail's cutting us off, but I feel like this conversation could go so many different ways.
It could.
But we'll stop it here. But, you know, when we do drop this, I would love to hear from everybody that's listening, you know, DM us and tell us what you think.